It's good, y'all. Welcome back to Niner Wire. I'm your host, Sam, and today we are here for Mock Draft Monday, episode 3. And today, Mock Draft Monday speaks its name because this is the first mock draft we are doing on the channel. I know I posted a few on Twitter. I called that 1.0, 1.2, you name it. I'm just going to call this 1.0 just for the ease of viewers. And today I got a guest on making another mock draft. We're going to be comparing and contrasting mock drafts. We got Jake right here. Jake, how you doing, man?
Good. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, for sure, man. Always good to have you on during draft coverage. I know we've done a lot in the past for draft coverage. Always really fun. But today, guys, we're going to be comparing all our mock drafts, giving you a round one mock with trades, explaining our picks, explaining and talking about each other's picks. So should be a very fun draft. So I'm really looking forward to get to it. But before we do that, make sure to follow me on Twitter at NinerWireSam. My Instagram's at NinerWire_YT. If you're watching on Twitter, make sure to subscribe on YouTube to Niner Wire. I post a lot of other stuff there, so make sure to check that out. Also, guys, make sure to check out Talking Niners with me and Kobe, another guy who should be on in a week or two, actually. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at Talking Niners Pod. Got a podcast, post a lot of stuff there as well. Also, guys, make sure to follow Jake's draft account on Instagram at _draft_wizard. He should be posting a lot of stuff there in the future, so make sure to check that out. He'll post a lot of analysis there on all the players, so should be a great place to check it out. And as always, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, you name it, make sure to leave them in the live chat below or whatever it is on your screen. And without further ado, let's get right into it with the first pick in the draft. And I think, Jake, you can say this is a pretty easy pick. The Jacksonville Jaguars are going to select Sarah Fuller, the kicker out of No, I'm playing. They're going to take Trevor Lawrence. It's pretty obvious at this point, isn't it?
Yeah, I think slam dunk. You talk about the physical attributes and the ability to be a passer and in the running game. I mean, he just kind of encompasses exactly what you want in a slam dunk number 1 overall pick.
Absolutely. And I mean, this dude, a lot of people have been saying that this guy's the best prospect since Andrew Luck. I can definitely see that in his film. I mean, he possesses everything you need to be an NFL quarterback. He is a franchise quarterback. Urban Meyer went there because they had the number 1 pick, and I think Trevor Lawrence is a massive reason as to why he went there. So not much needs to be said about this pick, in my opinion. So Trevor Lawrence, as Boomfire says right here, easily the number 1 pick in the draft. All right, let's move on to pick number 2, where the Jets are selecting. In my opinion, they're going to select Zach Wilson, the quarterback out of BYU. In my opinion, he is the QB2 in this draft. They have Sam Darnold. He is going to be a future Niner. They are going to trade him to the 49ers. I'm saying it right now just to troll everyone. But but they need a quarterback. Sam Darnold has not been the answer for them. I think getting Zach Wilson will be a massive upgrade, fit Robert Saleh in that 49ers offensive scheme that they have in New York really well. And I think that's a guy that the Niners are targeting. I bet that's a guy that Mike LaFleur wants as well, the offensive coordinator for the Jets. So I have them taking them here. Could go Penei Sewell, but I just think they need to upgrade the quarterback position. Plus, there's a lot of tackle depth down the line.
We're thinking the same right here. I got Zach Wilson. I think that despite his only 1 year of production against not subpar collegiate games, but definitely not like power conference like Justin Fields is playing against. But he just showed something special that you only see in some very few quarterbacks. And while Justin Fields is very good and the difference between them isn't huge, I have the Jets going Zach Wilson.
Yeah, I mean, Justin Fields, I mean, he is my quarterback 4 in this draft. And I actually do think there's a fairly big drop-off between Wilson and Fields. But, I mean, either way, I don't think you can go wrong. I think a guy like Justin Fields, I think Justin Fields might not be a safe pick for the Jets, in my opinion. But, yeah, that's another reason why I think Zach Wilson would be better fit. I think he's just the safer pick for the New York Jets. So, yeah. Speaking of Justin Fields, I have a trade at number 3. I have the Carolina Panthers coming up. This is my first trade to the Miami Dolphins. I have Carolina. Are you smiling because you have the same thing?
I swear we did not talk about these mocks.
We did not talk about this before.
We've been hearing so much about how Carolina is so aggressive for a quarterback and how they're going to do anything that they can. So it seemed like a no-brainer to me.
Yeah, and I mean, I think Fields also fits really well in the Carolina system. I know they want to move on from Teddy Bridgewater, as Jake just said, and they get their guy here. The trade I have Carolina getting 3 and 81 in exchange for 839, a 2022 first, and a 2022 fourth, which could be a lot. But as Jake said, Carolina's going to be aggressive for a quarterback, and they get their guy in Justin Fields right here. I think that's a phenomenal fit for the Carolina Panthers. And I think it's just going to work out either way. Getting him in Matt Rule's system should do phenomenal in Carolina. And I know Justin Fields is a guy I'm like, oh, he has a very low floor because if he's not in the right system, it's going to be terrible for him. I think Carolina is a fantastic system for him. You have a proven head coach. You have a young and developing team. I think it works out really well for Justin Fields in Carolina.
Yeah, I think for me, it'll definitely be telling to what Carolina does in free agency, as they have both their tackles and star guys, may I say, hitting free agency, and if they're able to re-sign them or potentially franchise tag. Because Fields is a guy who, as you said, he'll have a low floor if that O-line isn't good, because he tends to hold the ball a little long and stick to his reads, where I know that Ohio State system is famous for having first read options being like very prioritized. So you can't fully blame it on Fields, but it's still going to be a priority coming into the league, having a smooth transition, especially with a veteran guy like Teddy, who you can't just count out of the equation.
What do you think of Mac Jones to Carolina? Do you think he would fit the system as well? Or do you think Fields is going to be the better option for them?
I mean, I think Fields is significantly better than Mac Jones.
I'm with you on that.
Especially at this point. I think that Mac Jones might fit their situation a little better, simply because they need a little more time, and Jones is going to need a little more time to adapt to the NFL and get that. Because, I mean, you're talking about, okay, level of play in the SEC is big, but he's playing at Alabama. So he is playing essentially a subpar team on the other side, simply because his team is so talented and he has 5-star recruits all around him.
Yeah, and I think that's the one downside with Fields, is that he has all this talent around him. I know Devontae Smith came out today and said that Fields is better than Tua.
Jones.
But Jones is better than Tua, my bad. But I mean, you look at what Mac Jones brings to the table. I mean, he definitely has a high floor, in my opinion, but a low ceiling. I think you look at this guy, he's probably at worst an AJ McCarron, but at best you're probably looking at somewhere, I don't know, maybe the Kirk Cousins range, somewhere around there. Could be better, but that's what I've really seen a lot of people say, and I can definitely agree with that. So we'll have to see what happens with a guy like Mac Jones, but I definitely think that's probably the case for him. Spoiler, I do have him going round 1. We'll just have to wait and see where. So
yeah, to address that, the bottom comment in the chat that Rule likes Jones, I think a lot of that was kind of the classic Senior Bowl fake buzz, where he's on his team, and so it's just kind of assumed that, oh, he's the best player on this team. Well, the head coach must love him, like he's gonna go, and it's like, okay, let's settle down, guys. It's Senior Bowl. He's gonna end up on one team or the other.
And not to mention the top 4 quarterbacks, in my opinion, Lawrence, Wilson, Lance, and Fields, they were not at the Senior Bowl. So I bet there's a guy that they probably like better out of those 4. And I think Justin Fields would be their quarterback too, considering that I just love the fit in Carolina. So we'll have to see what happens. But I think Fields at 3, a trade. Miami is going to be a trade spot. I'm telling you, expect this pick to get traded. Carolina's probably the best option. If not, you're probably looking at the 49ers, maybe Washington. But other than that, it's not a lot. Maybe even Denver. I don't know. But I definitely think that Miami is going to trade this pick at 3. I think they need a receiver. I think they can trade down for that. They need a tackle. I think they can trade down for that. I
definitely think that they're probably going to go receiver on their first pick. And just because of the depth of the top 3 kind of guys with Waddle, Chase, and Smith, they're not going to super like definitively care who they're going with, especially when, even if you trade down, you have the chance at a guy like Kyle Pitts, even if you miss out on all 3 of them. If you're trading down to a spot like 8, or even with the Niners at 12, one of them will probably still be available.
Exactly, for sure. Definitely with you on that. So yeah. All right, pick 4. Do we have the same one? Jake, you tell me who you got.
I got Atlanta making a bit of a splash. I don't think that they go quarterback. I have them.
Okay, we got it different.
Kyle Pitt, Florida, tight end. I think that he's just such a big weapon. And if they do have competing in mind, their offense needs to take a bit of a step forward as Julio is ramping down. And I like Pitt as that kind of alpha receiver type, where he can fill in as well in the blocking game, like a Waller revolutionizes that Raiders offense and gives Carr that number 1 option despite what other lack of an offense the Raiders have or lack of a receiving core, Carr's still looked adequate simply because they have such a solid option with Waller. And Pitts can be that guy for Ryan and also help them out in some dump-off situations as their O-line still isn't great.
Yeah, Pitts, I definitely like that pick a lot. I mocked him a few times earlier. They do need a tight end. Their offense could be pretty good. It looks good on paper. Pitts filling in that role would be fantastic. But I went Trey Lance. There's been a lot of reports that they're interested in a quarterback in the draft. And when you look at the top 4 quarterbacks, I think Trey Lance really stands out because he is probably the biggest project out of the top 4. And he can sit behind a guy like Matt Ryan and do really well behind it, in my opinion, become a stud in this league. Also, new head coach, that just screams like, oh, they might want to make a culture change, bring in a new quarterback to lead this team for the future, maybe stick with Matt Ryan for a year and then move on. But I definitely think, you say Pitts, I definitely think that's probably their next best option at pick 4. I know a lot of people are saying, oh, they should go defense. There's no corner I would take there. Edge is their biggest need. I wouldn't take Kwity Paye or Gregory Rousseau there. That's definitely a bit of a reach. So I definitely think it's going to be that could be another trade back spot. If it's not going to be a trade back spot, I definitely can see Pitts and Lance going here. But do you think, Jake, they're probably going to move? They're going to stick with Matt Ryan for a year? Or do you think if Lance is there, are they just going to take him and move on? Or what do you think they're going to do with the quarterback?
Well, I think really what the saying. I mean, once you take a quarterback as a head coach and you get your guy, your clock starts, right? Like you need to start winning in a reasonable amount of time. And so like you can be a team like Chris Ballard, the GM of the Colts, and just kind of like put it off a little bit and it's like, okay, we're a quarterback away, right? And so you still think the team's in a really great position. And Chris Ballard's obviously not on the hot seat. He's made some great draft picks. And I feel like you're going to see that kind of happen in Atlanta, where if you take a guy like Lance and I don't want to say waste your number 4 overall pick, but he's not going to help the team for 1 or 2 seasons at least. I feel like you're putting your job on the hot seat because not only did you start your clock by taking a quarterback, he's not going to play because you have another guy in Matt Ryan. So I feel like for a new head coach to do that with an established veteran already on the team, I think his best option is to try and win now.
Yeah, for sure. And as Sanjo Sonny says right here, I mean, Matt Ryan, definitely looking at that contract, it definitely could help to win. The only reason I really have Lance is because I don't know if Atlanta is going to be in that win now situation, considering you got Tampa in the league still. They just came off the Super Bowl. I think Carolina could really step it up. I think they could be one of the dark horse playoff teams this year. New Orleans is still good. They are going to have to figure out the quarterback situation, but
didn't Breeze? Oh no, that was a fake report. Never mind.
Yeah, that was a fake report. So we don't know what Breeze's situation is. He's probably going to retire, but I mean that's the only reason I think maybe just getting a new guy, preparing for these NFC South opponents, and just like not necessarily restarting the future, but kind of just building your offense off still a pretty young offensive line, Calvin Ridley, Trey Lance, and whatever running back you use next year. I think that would be a decent option. But Matt Ryan, I think it's safe to say that Matt Ryan will be the starting quarterback next year. And if Trey Lance is somehow not at pick 4, I don't think they're going to take another quarterback. I think you're looking at a guy like Kyle Pitts there or a trade back. So for sure. All right, pick number 5. We both have Penei Sewell on the board. This is kind of an obvious pick, right? Penei Sewell to the Bengals at 5.
Is that how you pronounce it? I don't know.
I just say Penei Sewell. I don't know, but.
Yeah, I think Sewell is definitely a guy who has the chance to go earlier, especially if Miami is forced to make their pick at 3 because no one is providing the capital to move up. Because I feel like if you're Miami there, you don't really want to take a receiver there, especially with another first-round pick and more capital later in the draft where offensive tackle and offensive line in general falls off a little bit more than wide receiver does. And so, but if Sewell is here at number 5, I definitely see him going to the Bengals. I don't see how you take anything but an offensive lineman. I could definitely see them going Slater if they value him higher. But Sewell, and then, I mean, I don't know if you heard the report, but they don't want to move Jonah Williams to right tackle. So it could be
if they don't want to do that,
if they put Slater at guard. that might make it a little easier.
Or right tackle too. That is an interesting report because Penei Sewell is a left tackle, and he is like a pure left tackle. He's Trent Williams 2.0 in my opinion. That is a perfect comparison for Penei Sewell. I mean, that's interesting if they don't want to move Jonah Williams. I don't know who would play right tackle. I did not hear that report earlier today, so that would be very interesting. If that's the case, I think Rashawn Slater would probably be the pick at 5 over Penei Sewell, which is kind of surprising to say. I went Penei Sewell here because he is the best, in my opinion, the second best player in this draft. So Bengals get their offensive lineman right there. And you mentioned Miami. I don't necessarily, kind of adding on to like left tackle and stuff, I don't know if Miami would want to take him, simple because they drafted a guy like Austin Jackson last year. He was labeled as a developmental tackle who could definitely be a starter in this league, a left tackle. I don't know if they want to move on for him right away. Maybe they move him to right. I think receiver for Miami would be a bit more reasonable at 3. We'll talk about Miami in a bit. They're at pick 8. They're at pick 18 now for the both of us. So, yeah. But Penei Sewell at 5. I think that's the safe pick right now. But I can definitely see a guy like Rashawn Slater right there. So, for sure. And by the way, Rashawn Slater can play anywhere on the offensive line. That's the reason you're taking him at 5 over Penei Sewell.
Yeah.
For sure. All right, pick number 6. Someone up here, I believe it was, this guy right here. Don't forget about the Eagles being a possibility for quarterback. I don't see that at all, in my opinion. I think the Eagles are going to go probably wide receiver, maybe cornerback, maybe offensive lineman. I'm going to go Ja'Marr Chase here. I think it's a fantastic fit for Philadelphia. They're running an offense with a lot of speed in it. And at this stage of the draft, Ja'Marr Chase is the best speed guy compared to the top 3 receivers, in my opinion, which in order is Devontae Smith, Ja'Marr Chase, and Jalen Waddle. I think you take the faster guy and Ja'Marr Chase, who in my opinion has a lower floor than Devontae Smith, but lower ceiling than Devontae Smith, but that ceiling is definitely pretty high. So I definitely think they're getting a phenomenal pick at pick 6 with a guy like Ja'Marr Chase, and I definitely think it's going to fit their system well. They're looking for speed guys. They cut Alshon Jeffrey. They cut Deshaun Jackson. I would not. I mean, I don't know why else they would not take Ja'Marr Chase or a receiver at pick number 6.
Yeah, this is a spot I would have had them going Kyle Pitts if he was available. I really like the fit there.
Yeah, I think that's a phenomenal fit for them as well. I don't have Pitts available. Well, I do have Pitts available, excuse me. But I think when you look at it on paper, I think they cut 2 receivers. I think you just got to fill that hole right away. The only way you don't fill that, you take Pitts, in my opinion, with what they did so far is because of if they want to move him to receiver. And obviously free agency hasn't happened yet, so there's still a lot to happen. But I definitely think Pitts, I definitely agree that Pitts would be a fantastic fit in the system as well.
Yeah, I had them going ultimately Devonta Smith. He's my favorite receiver in the class, and I just think he's insane talent that at 175 pounds he had
it's ridiculous
the stats that he did and won the Heisman. He's just an incredible player, and I think it's a talent that you can't miss if you're the Eagles, where like you went a little more with speed. I think you took Rager in the first round. I think they are going to give Hurts a couple, like at least the season to start and see if he can figure it out, and kind of see if they can put a team around him.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely think I like the Devontae Smith pick. The only reason I went Chase is because, in my opinion, he's the better fit. But when you look at what they need, like you look at the receivers in this class, Devontae Smith, in my opinion, is the best receiver in this class, has a higher ceiling. His floor is in the similar range with Ja'Marr Chase, in my opinion. So I think that really just puts it over the top. Speaking of Devontae Smith, that's going to be my 7th pick in the draft to the Detroit Lions. They have Kenny Golladay, they have Marvin Jones, both are free agents. I think they might. I've heard there was a report today that they might try to tag and trade Kenny Golladay. So I definitely think that would work out for Detroit. Marvin Jones, I think, is probably gone. So you got to fill that hole, especially you just took a risk on Jared Goff in that massive contract. I think you just got to get him a weapon right away. I know you have Hawkinson, so you're not really going to consider a Pitts here probably. You're probably looking at whoever the best receiver is. I would assume that Ja'Marr Chase and Devontae Smith both fall to 6. So whoever Philadelphia doesn't take, I think you're probably taking here with a new head coach. You can get a fresh start with a new quarterback and kind of figure it out right there. But Devontae Smith, in my opinion, best receiver in the class. I think this is a phenomenal pick for Detroit.
Yeah, I definitely considered receiver, but in my mock with Smith and Pitts being off the board, I did consider Jamar Chase as an option, and I think that any of them would be pretty solid. I ended up going with Rashawn Slater from Northwestern, just as the second best guy. He can potentially play guard or tackle, and with a new head coach, and no, do they have a new GM? I don't remember.
They do have a new GM. They have a new GM, new head coach. So
you have a certain amount of job security in 2 first-year guys. So you want to build it up through the offensive line and get those trenches built up. And I think it'll be especially important to do that before you take that step to get that solid number 1 receiver, just because I don't believe that Goff is going to be their quarterback of the future. I think they did it to get extra draft capital. So I think it's definitely important for them to get that Rashawn Slater piece. They can combine with, oh God, who's their stud guard?
Are you thinking of Frank Ragnow? He's a center.
Maybe. No. God. Maybe I'm thinking
look at the Lions depth chart real quick.
Honestly. Didn't watch a lot of I had Hawkins
Detroit
on my fantasy
There's
team,
not really anything exciting about that.
Didn't watch a lot of Lions offensive line.
Jonah Jackson?
I don't know. Maybe
Jonah Jackson
talked
about pick last year, but yeah. That's a pick that I haven't really thought of for the Detroit Lions, honestly. And that pick would make a lot of sense considering that Rashawn Slater is such a versatile player in this draft and can really play anywhere on the line. I didn't really think about that, but now that I do think about it, I think you're looking at a team that could build the trenches quickly and just get a quarterback later on who could really fit their system really well and have that offensive line protection right away. You got Taylor Decker, who in my opinion is decent. Frank Ragnow is one of the best centers in football. Jonah Jackson was a 3rd rounder last year. The right side of the offensive line does need a bit of work. I think Rashawn Slater can come in right there, and you have a pretty solid offensive line right there with those 4 guys. I definitely think that could definitely work out for the Detroit Lions, and that's a pick I haven't thought of, as I just said, but I definitely like the fit there for sure.
Yeah, I just think that it's definitely a team where you're looking to build a team around where a quarterback can come in later. You don't want to throw a quarterback into the fire here or
for sure
build. I feel like
we're had Miami trading back to this pick. I have another receiver going off the board. This time it's Jalen Waddle. I can't stress enough how much I love Jalen Waddle to Miami. He's a guy in Jake's words that he will not be an alpha in this league. And in Miami, he doesn't have to be an alpha. He can be a wide receiver too, kind of like a Jerry Jeudy fit to the Denver Broncos last year. I think Jalen Waddle is a phenomenal fit to Miami for that reason. He is my wide receiver 3. Miami does need a wide receiver 2 on their team. They get their guy in Jalen Waddle. I don't really need to say much about it because I just think this is a phenomenal fit for that reason. He's a yak guy. I definitely think that Miami could utilize that as well. So I definitely think this is a phenomenal pick for the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, you have them going Waddle, and I have Waddle or Chase being the 2 receivers. You still have Pitts on your board, right?
I have Pitts on the board instead. I have Chase off the board and Pitts still on my board.
For me, having the Dolphins kind of needing any position of like value, not any position, any skill position. Like you're talking wide receiver, running back, someone for Tua to be comfortable throwing the ball to. I think Pitts, if he's on the board, I don't see them not taking him. Again, I've almost said that to any team.
Pitts could really fit in anywhere, honestly.
I just think he's so incredible and adds such a different dimension to your team. Where Tua had trouble trusting his receivers last year in that he didn't want to preemptively throw. He didn't know, he wasn't on the same page, and he didn't trust them enough. I have them taking Jamar Chase here. He can definitely line up in that kind of alpha role. I know they have Devontae Parker right now, but you can never have too many. And he could really be a stud in this league where I think right away he can come in and make a difference.
Yeah, I definitely think, especially if the Dolphins stay at 3, I think that's probably the most likely pick for them. Considering what I said earlier about Austin Jackson being the left tackle, I don't necessarily know if they want to go Sewell. And I think you'd probably take a guy like Jamar Chase or Devontae Smith. I mean, Devontae Smith, as we said earlier, we both like him over Jamar Chase. But I feel like the consensus from teams is that Jamar Chase is better than Devontae Smith because I've seen that in mocks. I've seen that from reports. So, I mean, that's just our opinion. But I guess if the teams like Jamar Chase, they're going to take him over Devontae Smith. Their call. I don't think you can go wrong either way. I think both players would be really good. I just think Devontae Smith will probably be a bit better than Jamar Chase in the NFL. But Kyle Pitts, again, another, I think the reason why Kyle Pitts is so low on some mock drafts is because a lot of draft analysts just see, oh, tight end. Is that really a valuable position? Like, not that many teams use, tight ends are obviously used on many teams, but a lot of teams don't value tight end as much as they would value a position like wide receiver. And I think this draft, you're going to see a common theme of positionless players. Elijah Vera-Tucker, Rashawn Slater. Those guys can play anywhere on the offensive line. You got guys like Micah Parsons who could play edge. He could play linebacker. I've heard a report that he could play safety as well. Same with Xavier Collins, not for safety, but for anyone on the defensive line in the front seven. And then Kyle Pitts as well. I've heard reports that he could play receiver instead of tight end. There's a lot of options for positionless players. Demetric Felton's another guy I can mention. There's a lot of them. So that's going to be a common theme for this draft. And that I definitely think that's going to really impact Kyle Pitts' draft stock, depending on, do teams want a guy who they know can play this position, or are they willing to test the waters and try out Kyle Pitts at a different position and see if he can play wide receiver, be a number one wide receiver in this league. So I definitely think Kyle Pitts is going to be the most interesting case in this draft, in my opinion, where he goes, what role he plays, and how he does in the league, in my opinion.
Yeah. He's definitely going to shift
okay.
that first round, that first half of the first round, definitely.
For sure. All right, pick number 9, the Denver Broncos are on the clock. I have them taking, speaking of positionless players, as I was just talking about, Micah Parsons from Penn State. I think the reason I have them taking this is because you got Von Miller on the team, but he could be done in Denver. We've seen a lot of reports that he could be released or traded. And Micah Parsons, linebacker. In the past, when Denver has seen an elite linebacker prospect, they have capitalized on that opportunity and turned that linebacker into a stud. And I think they're going to do the same thing with Micah Parsons, a guy who's been somehow sliding down draft boards, one of the best defensive players in this draft, if not the best defensive player in the draft. Another option they could go secondary. You could go Surtain. You could go Caleb Farley, maybe a J.C. Horn. I just think Parsons is the best defensive player in the draft, in my opinion, and that's why I'm going to have Denver taking them. Also for the reason about the elite linebacker prospects, but I definitely think this pick is going to be defense, whether it's an edge, whether it's a linebacker, or whether it's a cornerback, something like that. I think that's probably the best fit for Denver and the best, most logical option for them.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of both the top corners are going to go Denver, Dallas, either way, like Surtain and Farley.
Probably.
I considered Parsons more than I considered either of the corners for this spot. But in my draft, I have Lance falling to them, and I just don't see how they don't take him at that spot. You don't have to trade up. He's much more talented than Drew Lock, who I didn't understand that. He's just not an accurate passer, and they put all the pieces around him, and they're still terrible. That's all. Their defense is their defense was pretty solid last year, and their offense just couldn't produce. So
exactly,
I think it's time to switch it up. And Lance might even be. Lance is seen as a project, but he has that running ability and that size. That when people talk about ceiling or like what a player can do to become the very, very best, it's those things that you can't teach: the size, the speed, the arm strength. Because they say, Tom Brady didn't have a lot of upside. Well, what do they mean by that? It doesn't mean that he couldn't be the best quarterback, because obviously anyone coming into the league could be the best, right?
Sure.
But if Tom Brady was also 6'6" and ran a 4.2, he'd be a lot better, right?
Exactly.
That's what we're kind of saying. And I feel like Trey Lance could come in and make a difference on this offense, where I'm not a big supporter of Trey Lance. I think he's farther down on my board than most people's. But I think Denver at 9 just can't pass up on him, especially when you'd be taking a guy like Parsons, who he isn't going to save Vic Fangio's job right away. And I think that everyone in Denver can kind of feel the shift of, okay, Drew Lock isn't the guy. And us waiting to see another season isn't going to help me save my job. So we need to switch it up now.
Yeah, for sure. I think Lance, I mean, I don't think he's going to fall to 9. I think a team will probably trade up like the 49ers, like the Carolina Panthers. I think some teams probably going to trade up for a guy like Trey Lance. But if he falls to Denver, teams got to watch out for Denver trading up because people are looking at, oh, Drew Lock, he's in his second year. They might just stick with him. You know, John Elway just likes tall, white quarterbacks. That's all he cares about. I mean, Denver, they've been in rumors for Deshaun Watson. They've been in rumors for moving up with Miami. They've been in a lot of quarterback rumors. I think that's a team a lot of teams are going to have to watch out for, figure out what's up with them. And I definitely think quarterback could be a very valuable option, especially if Trey Lance falls to pick number 9. I definitely think that's a home run pick right there. And I definitely think that's going to put them in a contending spot. A lot of teams had them as a dark horse playoff candidate last year. They did not meet that at all. A lot of that was because of their offense. They do have a lot of holes on defense. That's why I went Parsons, and I don't have Trey Lance on my board as well because he's went to Atlanta at 4. But if he's there, I would not be surprised if they go Trey Lance as well.
Yeah, you mentioned the trading up. I just think that it's such a weird year, especially for Lance, where we didn't really see much, and what we did. I mean, if you're a team watching Lance and actually wanting him, you want to avert your eyes from the one game that he played this season.
Exactly. Yeah. That game was.
I don't know if teams are going to be willing to risk all their future capital of years where you might know exactly what you're getting to go get a quarterback. Where Lance, you don't really know. He had 1 year of success in D2 football, and in the most recent game you saw him play, he was pretty bad. And
pretty bad. And going up against a cornerback, Robert Rochelle, that I absolutely hate in this draft.
I just don't see teams being able to or being willing to invest that much, especially when last year all the talk was, okay, Detroit's moving back. They can get Okudah at 7. They can get Okudah at 8. Like, they can fill different spots. And they end up just sitting there and taking their pick because teams didn't want to give up the 2 or 3 first-round picks that it would take to go up and get Tua or Herbert at number 3.
For sure. I mean, definitely in a COVID year it's a COVID year. So, I mean, there's a lot going on. The combine's going to hurt a lot of players. It's going to be so obvious. The combine would usually just shift these boards drastically. There is none of that this year. It's going to be a lot different draft than last year. It's going to be a lot different draft than all of the years before because and also college football seasons, not many people played. A lot of people opted out. It's going to be very different this draft. So I definitely think you're right about that. Trey Lance, trading up for Trey Lance might not seem like the most viable option. Do I think a team would consider it? Yes, but I don't know. It's going to depend on how the interview goes and how people thought his 2019 film was and so on and so forth. And his workout, because I know teams are going to bring him in. I think you can only bring in 30 guys. I guarantee most teams bring in Trey Lance, especially if you need a quarterback. Just see what this kid's really all about. So for sure. All right, pick number 10, Patrick Surtain. I don't need to say much about this. Perfect fit. I've mocked him every time to Dallas. If he's on the board, they need a cornerback. They're going to pair him up with Trayvon Diggs, another Bama cornerback who locked down that secondary last year with Patrick Surtain. I will be absolutely shocked if Dallas passes on Patrick Surtain. I love this pick for the Cowboys. In my opinion, Surtain's cornerback 1. They get cornerback 1. They fill their secondary need. Their secondary was atrocious this year. They get their guy. It's that simple. Love this pick for the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, I ended up with the same pick, and I haven't done my full defensive evaluation, so I don't know exactly where he ranks in respect to Caleb Farley. But one thing that I did note in my preliminary observations was that Surtain played right corner, and it might be a scheme thing, but right corner is typically he didn't play zone. He didn't play
it's a lot of man.
Where he didn't play where he was switching to the best receiver because they want him matching up on them. He played right corner, which is typically not the high target spot for a lot of right-handed QBs, which is most, if not all, the quarterbacks, because they don't roll out to their left and they don't throw across their body. So you saw a lot of games where Surtain would not get targeted or would look dominant. And it's just okay, but you have to take that with a grain of salt as he's playing with an amazing defense around him, and he's also playing right corner where you're typically going to get less targets anyway.
Yeah, that is true. My only thing with Patrick Surtain is the targets that were thrown to him, he was just ridiculous in coverage. He looked like an absolute superstar out there in coverage on the passes. So, that is definitely a big question. Can they move him to left corner? That's one of the reasons why I have him on. I haven't made a big board yet, but that's why I have Micah Parsons over him for best defensive player in the draft. Even though I love Surtain, the versatility is definitely a major question mark with him. So I definitely think you could see a fall from Patrick Surtain a little bit, but Dallas at 10 just makes way too much sense for them. Jerry Jones loves the big schools, big ego guy. You already have a Bama cornerback. How about bringing another one? That would be a perfect fit, in my opinion. Patrick Surtain, the cornerback out of Alabama, to Dallas. So, yeah. All right, we've been talking about Kyle Pitts a lot. He's going off my board at pick 11. I considered a trade or an edge here for the Giants. I think edge is a bigger need than tight end. But I definitely think when you look at the edges, I think there could be a run on edges in the early 20s or something like that. And I think trading back would make sense. I tried a few trades, but it didn't make sense for the teams trading up, in my opinion. So I don't know if edge is necessarily the answer here. I think they can probably get that in the second round. It's a kind of like mediocre depth for edge, but there's a lot of round 1, round 2 guys at edge you can take. They have, I believe, pick 42 in the second round, something around there. I don't know, but they'll get an edge there. Kyle Pitts, though, you got Daniel Jones, Danny Dimes. He's a big question mark for this year. This could be a make it or break it year for him. They need another weapon on that offense, in my opinion. I don't know if a guy like Darius Slayton, Sterling Shepard, Golden Tate, that's probably not the answer for them. Kyle Pitts, they need a tight end. Evan Engram could be gone. He wasn't even that good in New York. He's always been a guy that could be on the trade block. So Kyle Pitts here, versatile guy. This is probably the farthest I see him going down. I don't really see him falling any further down. New York at pick 11 is probably the best.
Yeah, I have similar thought. The last top 4 receiver where you have Waddle, Chase, Smith, and Pitts, and I have Waddle going as the last guy to the Giants. He's just a weapon. Again, like the Giants offense, it's been bad. And you can blame it on Saquon not being there last year. But in my opinion, Gallman was adequate, maybe slightly above average. So you're going to need to see more from Daniel Jones, and hopefully getting Waddle, getting creative with him behind the line of scrimmage and letting him just make plays and be Jalen Waddle will fit better into their scheme and open it up a little bit for Saquon in the running game and Slayton deep.
You said top 4 receivers there. Are you putting Kyle Pitts as a receiver?
Yeah, I just have him as a receiver. Like,
all right, I got that. I definitely can see that. I mean, we talked about positionless players. He can definitely be like a true wide receiver in this draft. He's a pass catching tight end. That's his primary thing, and that's why teams are so high on him, is because he can definitely be utilized as a massive weapon in an offense that needs a tight end, or really any weapons. I think the Giants, again, I don't know if he's going to follow the Giants, but I think that is probably the furthest Kyle Pitts falls in this draft, in my opinion. All right, the 49ers are on the clock. Obviously, my 49ers. Jake, I want to hear what you have for this real quick. Let the fans hear what you got for the 49ers, the most anticipated pick of this draft.
The Niners, I first considered a trade down, but looking at the board, the only thing that I could see someone trading up for would be maybe an O-lineman. But a lot of the guys after those top 2, it's a pretty big range of who you value more or less. So I had them ending up drafting Kwity Paye. I just think they need an edge guy, and he fills that. He didn't play great at Michigan, but he has the talent and the potential to be really good in that defense.
Yeah, a lot of upside for Kwity Paye. I need to watch more edge film. Here, just a quick question for you. Who's better, Kwity Paye or Gregory Rousseau? That's been the debate at edge, really.
I mean, Rousseau, I just listened to an interview with Brevin Jordan, their tight end, and he basically described him as a freak. Like, basically, he's a huge problem, but he doesn't know how to play the position at all yet. So
yeah, that's what I've heard. He's just like extremely
like the Niners, and maybe I'm reading the Niners incorrectly, and they're going to take another year off. I don't see that. I think they're competing right now, and you don't really want a guy like that. I have Rousseau going to a very interesting spot, and I think he's definitely going to succeed in the role that I have him going to, even though it is a team that's expected to play well right now.
Yeah, stay tuned for that. I definitely think edge is in my opinion, when you rank the 49ers needs, I've said this before, it's probably quarterback, cornerback, offensive line, edge. But looking at the talent on the board, especially on your draft board, you don't have Rashawn Slater there. No Patrick Surtain. You didn't have – is Caleb Farley still on your board?
Yes.
He is. Okay, so you could have taken him there too. But I definitely think, Lynch loves to build through the trenches. Kwity Paye, edge rusher. They needed edge to replace D Ford. I think it's a good fit. I definitely think Aziz Ojalari would be the better fit, but Kwity Paye at 12, I can't complain about that whatsoever. As I just said, building through the trenches. That's the theme for my pick. I have Rashawn Slater on the board, so I'm going to make the obvious decision and take him right there. I mean, they need offensive line help, especially there's a lot of questions on the offensive line. Trent Williams could be gone. Mike McGlinchey had a horrible year. So Rashawn Slater, he can play left tackle if Trent Williams is gone. If Mike McGlinchey sucks, he can play right tackle. Or if Mike McGlinchey's good, and this is how they'll probably start him off, they'll put him at right guard, pair him up next to whoever our center is. We'll probably get someone in free agency, or a guy like Mike McGlinchey. Or you could just move him at. I mean, as I said, left tackle, right tackle. If something happens to Laken Tomlinson, left guard. I think Rashawn Slater is not a perfect fit, but just a phenomenal fit for the 49ers. I think Vera Tucker is the better fit, but you look at talent. Rashawn Slater is definitely the more talented guy. Falling to 12 would be an absolute steal at pick 12. Sanjo Sonny likes my pick better than yours, Jake, so I'm just better than you overall. That simple. But yeah, I really like both of those picks. Rashawn Slater, in my opinion, I would put him besides quarterback. I would say Rashawn Slater is probably the guy I want. But there's a lot of options for this team. Caleb Farley, J.C. Horn, Surtain, as you said, Kwity Paye. I think those are all very viable options. I would also not mind Vera Tucker at pick 12. So, yeah, that's what I got for the 49ers. All right, pick 13. Now the Chargers are on the clock. I was really strongly considering Vera Tucker here, but Caleb Farley is still on the board. I think you got to take him here. I definitely think the Chargers, I think their biggest needs are offensive line and cornerback. Offensive line, Vera Tucker, I considered here because they really need a lot on the offensive line, and he can play anywhere. But cornerback, you get Caleb Farley here. I think he is better than Vera Tucker when you're comparing both players side by side. So I definitely think Caleb Farley is going to be a phenomenal fit in LA. And it's really that simple. I mean, when you play the Chiefs twice a year, when you play the Broncos twice a year with Judy and Sutton, you got Henry Ruggs and the Raiders, who could be something we don't know. But I definitely think corner is a fantastic fit here for the fantastic pick here for the Chargers, and Caleb Farley would fit their scheme really well.
Yeah, I have him going with, like you said, the glaring issue of offensive line, and you have a franchise quarterback. I think that Christian Darrisaw is the number one guy left for me. Virginia Tech, he'll be a solid tackle, and I don't see them going defense. I mean, yes, I guess Farley is an option, but I just think that they can't pass up on a tackle here because you have Herbert and you want to set him up well. I could have seen them going receiver potentially because Mike Williams is a free agent after this season. Allen is obviously getting a little older, and Hunter Henry is also a free agent this season. So you don't have a ton of weapons on the offense, but that's also something that could be solved in the later rounds, as we've seen in the last couple years. I mean, wide receiver is pretty deep.
Yeah, I definitely think, I mean, you look at what they need. I mean, you have Herbert. I think offensive line, it's definitely a big need for them. I just think when you look at the AFC West, like you look at the pass rushers in the AFC West, I know you got guys like Bradley Chubb, Von Miller, Chris Jones, but other than that, I think you look at the wide receivers, that depth in the AFC West is much more, it's just much stronger than like those pass rushers. If they were going to take an offensive lineman, I think I would say Vera Tucker, because I think they still just need to figure out where the pieces are on their offensive line. I think he's a bit more flexible. I'm also not as high on Darrisaw as other people are. But speaking of Darrisaw, I have him going 14 to the Minnesota Vikings. If you're ready to move there, Jake.
Yeah, I have you have Darrisaw. I have Farley. So we've got
we just swapped picks. So yeah, let me if you don't mind, let me just explain my Darrisaw pick right here. I definitely think, even though I'm not as high on Darrisaw, he is my tackle number 6 in this class. But when you look at what the Vikings need, they do need a left tackle, a guy who can run block really well, and a guy who's decent in pass pro, could use a bit of improvement. And that's what Darrisaw is. He's a guy who is, in my opinion, one of the best run protectors in this class. His pass pro is what puts him at tackle number 6. His technique isn't that great. I don't know if that's going to get by in the NFL. He kind of reminds me of McGlinchey a little bit, but I definitely think you look at what the Vikings need, a left tackle with run blocking skills. I think it's a perfect fit for the Minnesota Vikings. With anything you'd fit right in, they use Dalvin Cook a lot. I definitely think it would work out for them. And you have Caleb Farley going there.
Yeah, I know they took 2 corners last year, and Cam Dantzler out of Mississippi State, and Jeff Gladney at TCU. But I think that you just need to keep hammering the position until you get 2 really solid guys, which is, what you saw the Bucs do consistently. They took day 2 and they didn't really have any late day 1 picks, but if they did, some day 2 picks over and over again until they got those solid guys and then kind of built around them. Obviously, they have some other stuff going with speed at the linebacker position, but they found their guys, and I think that Minnesota will try and get that same kind of thing going in. I don't really expect them to be competitive pretty soon, even though they have a solid quarterback. I don't know even if they make the playoffs, I don't see them being championship contenders really anytime soon.
For sure. And I definitely think you look at their cornerback situation. They took Mike Hughes in 2018. He didn't really pan out too well. You took Jeff Gladney, Cam Dantzler. Gladney did not have a good rookie season. Dantzler
he bounced back at the end. He was a guy I really liked.
Other than that, it wasn't that good. Dantzler
looked really good, though.
Yeah, Dantzler, I was always high on Cam Dantzler. I told you guys he would be special. He looked pretty good. Cornerback, it's definitely an interesting fit for the Vikings. I definitely think when you look at that team, cornerback doesn't glare out to you as a need. You're probably looking at offensive line, edge, but I definitely I think Farley would be a good fit here, especially at 14. That's a fantastic pick in my opinion. Getting Caleb Farley that low in the draft, I would not be surprised if they do that. Just trying to bolster that cornerback until they get an elite secondary, kind of what the Bucs did, as you said, with Sean Murphy Bunting, and Jamel Dean. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they do that as well. So, for sure. All right, New England Patriots are on the clock. Is this where Mac Jones goes, Jake?
Nope, I got them going J.C. Horn, cornerback, South Carolina.
Wow,
very physical guy. And when you look at the Pats secondary, I don't know why I couldn't think of that word. They have one guy who's under 30, and that's J.C. Jackson at 25. So even though they're still talented, they might trade Gilmore this offseason if the price gets low enough. And I think they need a guy to put out there for the future. And I think J.C. Horn could be that guy. Very physical, fits that Bill Belichick corner role.
Yeah, this is a pick where kind of adding on that point, this is a pick where whoever they get in free agency is really going to impact this pick. Wide receiver is a big need for them. Quarterback's a big need for them. Cornerback could be a big need for them. I avoided corner here. J.C. Horn, I definitely thought of here, but I think with Gilmore and J.C. Jackson, that was a pretty good secondary last year. I just decided to stick with that and pass on J.C. Horn. I took Mac Jones here. Mac Jones, the quarterback out of Alabama. They need a quarterback. They need a franchise quarterback. Mac Jones has been skyrocketing up boards recently, so I think they'll just take him here. And I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, they're not going to take Mac Jones. They never take a quarterback early. You know why they never take a quarterback early is because they had Tom Brady for the past 20 fucking years. So it doesn't really matter. I think Mac Jones is just going to be their guy at quarterback. I think they'll take him here. That's what I'm thinking right now. I could be very wrong. They could go receiver again. They haven't figured out their receiver situation. The cornerback could be okay. There's a lot of needs for the New England Patriots. Barmore would be a good fit out of Alabama. So we'll have to see what they do. Kyle Pitts, too. That could be another spot for him. I know a lot of people have been mocking him there. So, yeah, but I'm going to go Mac Jones. I'm going to play it a bit safe right here. Many people would say this could be a bit of a reach, but I just think if you have a quarterback that you want, you go and get that quarterback. It's that simple.
Yeah, looking forward to the 16th pick with the Cardinals. I think there's so much that you need to do on the defensive side of the ball, especially if Patrick Peterson's leaving. I think taking Micah Parsons, a guy who slid a little bit on my board.
You still have him on your board?
Yeah, 16.
Wow. Oh, my God. That is a phenomenal pick for them.
Field general. He could do a lot for him. Great run stopper. I see him more as a middle linebacker type rather than outside where he's listed on some mock draft spots. But I just think that you're taking best defensive player available for Arizona. I don't get tricky and try and take another receiver. You don't need it.
For sure. I definitely think you're looking at a guy. You're definitely looking at a defensive pick or Kyle Pitts if he falls. You got offensive minded head coach in Cliff Kingsbury. I wouldn't be surprised if they go Pitts here, but Pitts is off both of our boards. We both said he's probably going to go way earlier. I have J.C. Horn here. They do need a cornerback, and Peterson could be gone. J.C. Horn, that's a guy who compares himself to Patrick Peterson. That is a guy who I think would be a phenomenal fit in that system. Now you got a guy there. I mean, the NFC West is loaded with receivers and great quarterbacks too. Maybe the Niners get a quarterback. We'll have to figure out that. But DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel. Those are 6 fantastic receivers that you have to face 6 times a year in total. So, I mean, I definitely think cornerback is probably their biggest defensive need for their team. So I'm going to go J.C. Horn. I thought about Owusu-Koramoah, but they took Isaiah Simmons last year. Again, he's another guy, positionless player. He could play safety, but he didn't do that well either. I don't think they want to give up on him yet, considering they used him at pick 8. So I'm going to go J.C. Horn here. I think that's a fantastic fit. Bringing in Patrick Peterson 2.0, a guy who compares himself to Patrick Peterson, a guy who I would compare to Patrick Peterson, very physical guy, a guy I really like in this class, kind of like Cam Dantzler. I definitely think he can be a stud in this league for sure. All right, let's move on to your Oakland Raiders or Las Vegas Raiders, Jake. Excuse me, that was unintentional. I'm sorry about that, but I'll let you start on this one. Who you got for the Raiders?
Honestly, the Raiders right here could take the top 40 defensive players, put them in a hat, blindfold themselves, pick one, and just be doing better than they've been doing in the last couple of drafts. I know it's a lot to ask to take someone who's actually on the big board, but I don't really know what they've been doing. Christian Barmore is the guy who I picked. I'm not going to explain it because it's just anyone. Like, anyone can fit. Their defense is so unbelievably bad right now. It's just like, we draft a guy, and it's like, well, he's immediately trash. Like, garbage. We just wasted a first-round pick. I mean, we've wasted like 5 on the defense in the last couple of years. I don't know what to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's a rough life for Raiders fans. I apologize for that, Jake, but this pick is going to be defensive. Let's just get that out of the way. I don't see how on earth they would go offense for this pick.
Kyle Pitts. It's with any team.
But they have Waller already. They have Waller. They have.
Can you imagine both of them though? Like,
that would be insane. I mean, yeah, that would be insane. But I just think, looking at what they need, it's got to be defense. They've been close to the playoffs back-to-back years, and the defense has been holding them back. Their offense is fine. Their defense is the major problem. And I think when you look for a guy, it's for the past 2 drafts, you kind of see how the Raiders draft. They want a big school they want a guy from a big school and who's a leader. I think a guy that fits that in my opinion is my best defensive player on my board, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah out of Notre Dame, a linebacker there. It really can be any defensive player, and I think Owusu-Koramoah, he's the best one on my board. They need a linebacker. I mean, they need anyone on the defense, but he's a leader. He was a captain at Notre Dame. Notre Dame, big name school as well. I think it's that simple. And in my opinion, Owusu-Koramoah is one of the most underrated players in this class. I think he's going to be an absolute stud. And I would say that the gap between him and Parsons is not as big as people think. He's definitely a very underrated player. Parsons is the best, but Owusu-Koramoah is creeping up right behind him. And I wouldn't be surprised if Owusu-Koramoah went before Parsons. So, yeah, that's really all I got to say about it. But as we said, it's going to be a defensive pick. It's that simple. Barmore, I really like at this spot as well. They're just building up the front 7, building the trenches. Another big-name school guy, getting him there. I know a lot of people, or Matt Miller mocked Davion Nixon to there, and he said, oh, that's a perfect fit. I think Barmore's a bit of a better fit considering like what they like to do in the draft. So
I just think Barmore's a better player.
Yeah, Barmore's a better player too. So I definitely think Owusu-Koramoah is going to be the pick here. Well, I definitely think it's going to be the pick here. I mean, it's a great pick for them. They didn't reach this time, which is good. But I mean, we could just get an absolute shocker in this. Like a guy like Dylan Moses at 17. That's a shocker you could have. We'll have to see. It's the Raiders. It's so unpredictable what they do. So yeah. All right, pick 18.
Yeah,
I got a trade here. Or go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry, no, it's just you're like freezing and cutting out. Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah, you too. I don't know what's up with it. I know your internet's been a bit spotty today. I don't know if it's me or you. If you're watching, you can just tell me who it is. But I mean, I can hear you fine. You're just a bit fuzzy. It's all good. I think usually for the stream, it usually looks on your part, but it could be my internet. I don't know. I've been having internet issues recently with just everything for this stream, so it's all good. But hey, the show must go on. Let's just continue with pick 18. I have a trade here. So, Jake, why don't you start this one off?
I just have the Dolphins. Obviously, let's remind ourselves of who I had them taking the first pick, Jamar Chase, after trading back, getting some more capital this year and next year. But I had them taking Samuel Cosmi out of Texas. Similar to last year's pick, we were taking an upside tackle. And I just think he's a solid fit for a young team that needs to get better in the trenches.
Yeah, I think my thing with Cosmi is that when I watch this film, he's a left tackle. Again, kind of with the same thing with Austin Jackson. I don't really know if they need a left tackle. I like Cosmi a lot. He's my tackle number 5. In my opinion, he's one of the most polished tackles in this class. And I definitely think he's going to be a stud in this league. But I mean, I don't know if Miami's the best fit for him. I would probably take Tevin Jenkins instead. But 18, there's not the value there. That's one of the reasons I have Miami trading down. I don't know if the value's there for anyone they really want. I mean, you could go Rousseau here. You could go, as I said, Tevin Jenkins, but it's not there. I had Waddle at first, so you're not really going to take a receiver. So I have them trading back with the Kansas City Chiefs, and I have the Chiefs taking Elijah Vera Tucker. The Chiefs need offensive line badly. It's that simple. They really just need. I mean, Eric Fisher might not be there next year. They've had problems on the interior line, and Vera Tucker is a guy who can play anywhere on the offensive line. Left tackle, left guard, right tackle, you name it. I have them trading up for him simply because he fell in my draft. I have Vera Tucker pretty high on my big board. 18, I definitely think Kansas City trading up, getting their guy is a fantastic fit for them. And just protecting Patrick Mahomes. It's that simple. You didn't win the Super Bowl last year in a large part because you could not protect Patrick Mahomes. I think they're going to realize that, and I think Vera Tucker is going to come off the board here at 18 to the Kansas City Chiefs. The trade I have for them, I have Kansas City getting 18 and Miami getting 31-63 in a 2022 second. The second trade that Miami made, and that's a pretty good deal if you ask me for the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah.
All right, perfect. Let's move on to pick 19. The Washington football team's on the clock, and this is another. I mean, I've been saying perfect fit for a lot of guys. This one's a perfect fit in my opinion. Kadarius Toney to the Washington football team. They didn't get their quarterback, and instead they're going to get a receiver. In my opinion, that's their second biggest need. He's a guy who kind of plays like Curtis Samuel. That is a guy who Ron Rivera hoped to develop into a stud receiver. Maybe he can do it with Kadarius Toney in Washington. So I definitely think Kadarius Toney is going to help whoever their quarterback is. He's been creeping up my board a lot recently. I need to do a bit more research on wide receiver, but Kadarius Toney's been creeping up my board. In my opinion, right now I have him as wide receiver 4. So, I mean, he's an absolute stud. He could go in a lot of places on this team, kind of like Deebo Samuel, kind of like Curtis Samuel. I think it's a fantastic fit for Washington.
I've got Washington going Mac Jones here. I think he's still on the board.
There you go.
And, I mean, you signed a guy like Heineke, that guy.
Taylor Heineke, yeah.
Maybe Jones doesn't need to start right away because I watched that game against the Bucs. Heineke looked pretty good. I don't think he's the quarterback of the future by any means, but I think that the value here is too good. It's a similar situation to Denver at 9 where the guy that you didn't know that you wanted kind of fell into your lap and you were like, okay, yes, this is the best value here.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you kind of talk about with Heineke. I don't know if he can start right away. He's only starting in one game. So, or was he starting that Philadelphia game? I don't know. But
he played in a couple games. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, he was a 4th-string quarterback, then became the starter. So I don't really know. But I mean, I think Kyle Pitts would probably be Kyle Trask would be a better fit to them. A bit more of a developmental guy who can sit behind Heineke. Maybe you bring in a bridge quarterback like Ryan Fitzpatrick. Teddy Bridgewater would be a nice fit in Carolina and Washington as well. But I think for now, obviously it's way too high to get Kyle Trask, in my opinion. I already had Mac Jones off my board. I had him going to New England at 15. So I'll go Kadarius Toney here. I think it's a fantastic fit for him. He's been a very popular pick in many mock drafts as well. I know Matt Miller had him there. Daniel Jeremiah had him there recently. So it's definitely an interesting pick. And it's been a common pick, and I think it's a phenomenal fit for Washington. So that's really all I have to say about their pick.
Yeah. I actually have to get going now. We started a little later than I had thought.
Okay. Do you want to just run down what you have real quick?
Yeah, I'll just read off my picks. Chicago at 20, Kadarius Toney. I think for a lot of the same reasons that you said, him going to Washington would make sense. Indianapolis 21, Jalen Mayfield. I think you've got Anthony.
Guy. Hate Jalen Mayfield. He is so raw. It's ridiculous. I do not like it. Watch the Penn State game from 2019. He's atrocious.
I know Costanzo retired, but you still don't need him to start right away at left. You can have him.
Yeah, he's also – the only reason I also just don't like that pick is because he's a right tackle. So, he is a developmental guy, so I definitely think he can swing over.
There's guys I like more. Like, if Cosme was here, I definitely have them going Cosme.
Yeah, I have Cosme there. We'll talk about that in a sec. But
all right, and then at 22, I have the Giants trading up with the Titans because JOK fell all the way to 22. So I thought, okay, they can't wait to watch him fall anymore. Jets at 23, Elijah Vera Tucker. I think that's a great pick after
another guy who fell really far as well.
Pittsburgh, Wyatt Davis guard. And Jacksonville tackle, Tevin Jenkins. I have a lot of offensive linemen kind of going. I don't know if I have – I have a couple
of them.
Okay, this is a pick that I love. I referenced it earlier. 26 to Cleveland. Who do you think I'm talking about?
Trayvon Moehrig?
Gregory Rousseau. Learning alongside Myles Garrett. Oh, baby.
That's a fantastic pick right there. And I don't think he's going to fall that far. But I think you get a developmental guy right there, an absolute freak. Myles Garrett and Gregory Rousseau, that's just going to torch the league for years if that happens, in my opinion.
Yeah. Baltimore, I have Gregory Rousseau's teammate and D-line mate, Jalen Phillips, who's apparently going to run like a low 4.5 when he runs the 4.
Oh, dude, he's ridiculous.
I thought was insane when I heard that.
I watched a few games of offensive tackle rankings. He was just dominating. I couldn't not notice him. He was just absolutely dominating the film.
Former number 1 recruit out of high school, went to USC, had some injury.
UCLA. I went to UCLA and then transferred. So
UCLA? I thought it was SC.
It was UCLA.
Oh, my bad. Saints, I have them going Tryon. That dude is just massive.
Who?
Washington D end, Joe Tryon.
Oh, okay. I need to research him more. I haven't heard of him before, really. So I'll have to research that a little bit more.
Packers going corner, Aaron Robinson. You watched that Bucs game. You saw the Miller touchdown.
Yeah.
That just locked in the pick right there. They might as well have sent it in at the moment. Buffalo, I have them going Leatherwood because I think he can play guard and tackle. So I think that's a little bit of the flexibility that they need to protect their now prized possession at quarterback.
Yeah, I know a lot of people have had him like sliding down boards, a lot of scouts to say that, but I think you look at the teams in 30, 31, 32, Leatherwood could really fit in any of those teams because they don't need much. I think Leatherwood's a phenomenal fit for Buffalo as well.
Yeah, KC, I have going Landon Dickerson, only falling because he has Achilles issue, right? Is it Achilles or ACL?
It's an ACL.
ACL. Okay, it's one of the two. But yeah, he's a beast. He was so talented. His tape is so good. He's massive. And I just think the Chiefs are in a position right now in their team where they can take risks like this. Like you had them trading up. Like they kind of have flexibility. Like last year, I didn't get taking CEH. Like upside is not great for taking a running back.
Yeah, they didn't really need anything. So, but yeah.
And then 32, Najee Harris to the Bucs. We see this a lot, but great receiver, all around back. He's awesome. And
would you say Etienne's the better receiving back than Najee Harris?
I think receiving they're pretty similar level. Najee is the better runner.
Najee's definitely better. Oh yeah, for sure.
I don't see how people have Etienne going first, but I don't understand how people like drafted Jonathan Taylor not as he was the 3rd running back drafted last year,
which is crazy.
what?
Well, actually, here's a spoiler. I have ETN first. I'll just say I have ETN to Buffalo at 30. I'll just make it really quick. Just a pass catching back, mobile quarterback. I think it would be really fun to watch. A lot of speed there. Cornerback as well, but I just think the value is there for ETN or Najee Harris. But I'm going to go ETN there. So yeah. All right, Jake, you got to get going. I really appreciate having you on. I'll definitely send you the rest of my mock draft later on. But you got any final words before you go?
Thanks for having me on. Love to be back. Sorry I had to cut out early.
It's all good. Guys, make sure to follow Jake on this Instagram account at @the_draft_wizard. He's going to post a lot of stuff there. I'm hoping to have him back on for a lot of draft content. He knows the draft really well, kind of like I do. So make sure to check him out there, follow him there. And Jake, hope to see you in the future back on the channel. See you later, man.
Yep. See ya. Bye.
Yep, for sure. All right, so just me. We're going to finish up the draft real quick. We are back at pick number 20 with Kwity Paye falling all the way down to Chicago at 20. I definitely think this is interesting to watch. 18 through 23. There's going to be a run on edge right there. You look at all the teams. I would say all the teams could use an edge besides Washington, probably. All the teams could use an edge besides Washington. So there's going to be a run on edge. And somehow Kwity Paye is my first one off the board at 20. I don't know how he fell there, but I think it's as simple as he's the best player on the board. Chicago could use an edge, so might as well take him. They could go quarterback, they could go offensive lineman, but in my opinion, it's way too hard to pass on a guy like Kwity Paye. So that's my pick there. I'm going to run through this kind of quickly with Jake, try to wrap this up. This one a bit longer than I thought it would. So I'll make sure to explain every pick in depth, but yeah, for sure. All right, pick 21. We talked about Jalen Mayfield here, and I didn't really like that. I would go with the guy with Sam Cosmi. Sam Cosmi is on my board, so I'm going to take him. As I said earlier, one of the most polished tackles in this class. Left tackle, he's my tackle number 5, and I think one of the reasons I think he could fall pretty far is because a lot of people think he's going to fall due to all the Texas head coaches getting fired. So I definitely think that's something to watch. You're probably looking at picking the 20s for Cosmi or round 2. Wherever you get him, I think it's going to be phenomenal. I've seen him as high as tackle 2 in the class, ahead of guys like Rashawn Slater. I definitely think Cosmi is a phenomenal pick. At tackle 5, he absolutely did. He did phenomenal against Kayvon Chason last year. Rashard Lawrence is the other guy. I think he did well. He's on the Cardinals now, 4th-round pick last year. So I definitely like the Sam Cosmi pick at 21. So that is my pick to the Indianapolis Colts. All right, we talked about a run on edge. Here it goes. More runs on edges. We had an edge at 20. We're going to have an edge at 22. Gregory Rousseau falling to 22, falling in both of our drafts. I mocked Phillips here multiple times because I thought Jalen Phillips would be a phenomenal fit here, but he played the Gregory Rousseau role, and Rousseau is better than Jalen Phillips, so it's that simple. Gregory Rousseau is going to go here at 22. They need an edge, but definitely watch out for tackle. I know Jake and I talked about this off camera, but you saw the tweets from Isaiah Wilson today that he's done with Tennessee. They don't have a right tackle if that's the case. So you could go get a guy like Tevin Jenkins. You could get a guy like Jalen Mayfield. Again, I'm very low on Jalen Mayfield, a developmental guy who is, he's a right tackle. Just if you want to know why I hate Jalen Mayfield, watch the Penn State game from 2019. He just got absolutely blown up by guys like Yetur Gross-Matos and Jason Away. It wasn't even that. It was just disgusting to watch. What did I write for my notes? Because I watched a few games from him. When I looked at my notes for Jalen Mayfield, or what I wrote down for the Penn State game, I just wrote down fucking awful. That's how you describe it. And I don't really cuss on this channel anymore. I kind of stopped doing that. But when I do, it just goes to show that it's bad. That's how you know. When I cuss now, it's bad. I don't do that often anymore. So yeah, but we'll get out of the habit. We'll figure it out. Be a bit more professional on the channel, but it is what it is. All right, 23. Run on edge continues with Aziz Ojalari headed to the New York Jets. And this is another guy who I think is another perfect fit. You got a guy like Robert Saleh at head coach, and he's going to take a guy who is going to be the D Ford of the New York Jets. It didn't work out in San Francisco due to the injuries. Now you get a guy like Aziz Ojalari to be that guy from the New York Jets. A bit more of a developmental prospect when looking at the edges, but the Jets can afford to do that. They're one of the worst teams in football. They can develop their guys, and I think Robert Saleh would do a phenomenal job in doing that as well with Aziz Ojalari. So this is a Robert Saleh pick. I like this pick a lot for the New York Jets. So Aziz Ojalari to the New York Jets at 23. I would not be surprised if they do this in the real draft, maybe even trade up to them. I considered a trade up to 19 for Kadarius Toney, but I think you look at Chicago right behind them. So Kwity Paye, I mean, Kwity Paye went to the Bears, but I think if Kadarius Toney was on the board, they would have taken him. So I considered a trade up. I decided not to do that, and they get their guy at 23. So Jets are having a good draft with Aziz Ojalari and Zach Wilson. So yeah, for sure. All right, pick 24. The run on edge continues. It is not the Pittsburgh Steelers making this pick. I have a trade. The Atlanta Falcons are trading up. They are giving up picks 24 and they're getting picks 24 and 224 in exchange for picks 35 and 68. And they're continuing the run on edge with Jalen Phillips. Another guy I love in this class. I haven't watched edges that much, but I can just say right now, my top 4 edges: Kwity Paye, Gregory Rousseau, Aziz Ojalari, and Jalen Phillips. I think those are the top 4. Jalen Phillips is an absolute freak. And by the way, Jalen Phillips is my edge 4. I haven't watched Jalen Phillips film. I watched offensive tackle film from Christian Darrisaw, other guys. Who else did I watch Miami games from? Let me look. Christian Darrisaw is one of them. Who else? Well, I'll find it later. But Christian Darrisaw is one of them. He absolutely dominated that game. It was ridiculous how much he dominated the right side of the offensive line. Thank God Christian Darrisaw was on the left side. He would be a lot lower on my list if he wasn't. But yeah, man, I mean, Jalen Phillips is an absolute freak, and Atlanta needs an edge. They're going to get him right here with Jalen Phillips. Phenomenal pick for the Atlanta Falcons. And Atlanta now goes off the board with Phillips and who did they take it for? I'm an idiot. They took Trey Lance. So Trey Lance, Jalen Phillips, that's a phenomenal draft. I mean, you had to move up, which is never necessarily favorable, but Jalen Phillips at 24 is an absolute steal right there. So that's a great pick. All right, 25. This is going to be a very hard pick to mock because, in my opinion, the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to take whoever they want. I'm sorry, not whoever they want. Obviously, they're going to take whoever they want, but they're going to go best player available, in my opinion, regardless of position, unless it's quarterback, running back, wide receiver. Those are the only 3 positions I don't think they're going to take. So I'm going to say that they're going to take Christian Barmore at 25. He is the best best player available on my board right now. So I think, and they need a defensive tackle. Taven Bryan really hasn't been it for them. Nose tackle. I mean, they traded Calais Campbell. He wasn't the nose tackle, but they need to fill that defensive tackle need. They're going to get their guy in Christian Barmore, best player available on the board. I think it's a great pick for Jacksonville. I bet they'll probably just approach it that way with best player available. Just take whoever they want. But yeah, that's what I got for now. All right, pick 26. I got another trade here. Last year, the Packers traded up for pick 26. This year, the Packers are trading up for pick 26. Again, they're not taking a wide receiver. They're taking Nick Bolton, the linebacker out of Missouri. They're trading up for the sole reason to jump the New Orleans Saints. I think New Orleans would have taken him if he was still on the board. They need a middle linebacker badly. They didn't get one last year. I think Kenneth Murray, Patrick Queen were 2 popular fits for them. Didn't get them. Quan Alexander, there was a report today that he could be cut. So we'll have to see what happens with that. But yeah, I think definitely Nick Bolton's a great pick here. They cut Christian Kirksey, so linebacker is probably their biggest need on the team. And Bolton fits in really well. They need a middle linebacker. They get the best one available in Nick Bolton and one of the best linebackers in the draft. So I like that pick for the Green Bay Packers right there. All right, pick 27. I got another trade. The Miami Dolphins have traded back twice. They are now coming up to pick 27, trading with the Baltimore Ravens. We talked about how Tevin Jenkins could be a good fit, and I was kind of hinting to you guys that Tevin Jenkins would be the pick. He is the pick at pick 27. Tevin Jenkins going to slide into that right tackle role. And Tevin Jenkins, this is a guy I love. He is in my tackle number 4, ahead of Cosme, ahead of Darrisaw. You guys saw how much I praised Sam Cosme. Tevin Jenkins, I like more than him. So, and they need an offensive tackle. Tevin Jenkins, by far the best one available. He can play right tackle. If they want to move Austin Jackson to right tackle, they can do that and put Tevin Jenkins at left tackle. He's a swing tackle. The reason I had them trading up is simply because there's a lot of teams in the 30s that need tackles. You got Kansas City. The Jets could use a tackle. I mean, I could go on and on about who could use a tackle, but I'm going to have Miami trade up, just get their guy, be secure. Baltimore trading down, I think it makes a lot of sense for them. So there you go. All right, pick 28. The New Orleans Saints are on the clock now. I had Nick Bolton going. I thought they were going to take Nick Bolton. They Green Bay Packers traded up, so they're not taking Nick Bolton. Instead, they're going to take the next best linebacker available, and that's Xavier Collins. I don't think it's as good as a scheme fit, but you look at kind of another guy who can be a positionless player. He can play middle linebacker. He can play edge. Whatever you want whatever you want him to do in the front seven, he can probably do. And I definitely think that's going to help because I think Cam Jordan's probably going to be gone after this year. They might cut him as a cap casualty. So I'm going to have them taken this year. A very versatile guy. I think it's going to work out really well for the New Orleans Saints and Xavier Collins. So they don't get Nick Bullen, but they get the next best option in Xavier Collins right there. All right, pick 29. The Browns traded down from pick 26. So they're at pick 29. I think they're going to go defense here. Trayvon Moehrig would make sense. But I don't think they're going to do that. I think they're probably going to fill that need in free agency. It's always a risk having two rookie safeties there as starting. They had Grant Delpit, who missed all of last year, so I'm going to consider him a rookie. Trayvon Moehrig, now two rookie safeties. I don't know if that's the best fit, so I'm going to go with Davion Nixon out of Iowa, a defensive tackle. They could use defensive tackle, so they're going to take the best one available in Davion Nixon. Joe Tyrone, as Jake said, that would be another good fit for them. I believe he went to New Orleans, and I didn't really know who he was. I gotta watch more edge film. You also got guys like Jay Tufili out of USC. There's a decent amount of defensive tackles, but the best one available is Davion Nixon. Larry Ogunjobi is a free agent. They could fill that role with Davion Nixon. So I definitely think it's going to work out for them. All right, 3 more picks. Bear with me. We're almost done with this stream, guys. Pick 30, Travis Etienne. I already talked about that. You guys can rewind the video about that. I'm not going to explain that anymore. But, I'll explain a bit more for the people who are just watching live. Pass catching running back with a mobile quarterback is going to be fun to watch. I definitely think they could have gone cornerback. They could have gone Najee Harris, but I think Etienne's the better fit here. So I have them taking Travis Etienne. Even though he's not the best running back in this class, Najee Harris is. I'll go with Travis Etienne right there. All right, 31. The Baltimore Ravens traded back. I think this is for sure going to be a receiver. And I'm going to go with Rondale Moore here. And Rondale Moore is a guy who has slid down draft boards because of durability. But if you're the Baltimore Ravens, I think it's worth taking the risk on the durability. You got teams like Cleveland and Pittsburgh who are on the rise. Cincinnati's also on the rise. I think Baltimore's window could be closing very soon. You're going to need a receiver who's going to fit this team really well. Rondale Moore does just that. It's a high-risk, high-reward pick, but if this hits and if he can stay healthy, if he's available every game in, game out, this is an absolute steal. Rondale Moore is a freaking beast. There you go, 31. I think he could fall a bit more. This could be a bit early from him, but I would not be surprised if Baltimore is willing to take this risk on him. And finally, at pick 32, I was deciding between Dickerson or Creed Humphrey, but I'm going to go Dickerson because Tampa has decent O-line depth, and I definitely think they can fill in the role for Dickerson while he's hurt. But taking Dickerson at 32, best center in the draft, absolute steal right there. So Landon Dickerson at 32 to wrap up this first round. Again, Tampa doesn't need much, and free agency is going to play a big role in them. They could use an outside linebacker, an edge, a wide receiver, but we're going to go Landon Dickerson for now because they for sure need a center going forward. So, yeah, so that is the full mock draft for me. I'm just going to read through it one more time for everyone. All right, so just reading it one more time. Trevor Lawrence 1, Zach Wilson 2, Justin Fields 3, Trey Lance 4, Penei Sewell 5, Jamar Chase 6, Devontae Smith 7, Jalen Waddle 8, Micah Parsons 9, Patrick Surtain 10. Oh, sorry, I didn't mention trades. Justin Fields to Carolina at 3, Jalen Waddle to Miami at 8, Micah Parsons at 9, Patrick Surtain at 10, Kyle Pitts at 11, Rashawn Slater at 12, Caleb Farley at 13, Christian Darrisaw at 14, Mac Jones at 15, J.C. Horn at 16, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah at 17, Elijah Vera Tucker to Kansas City at 18, Kadarius Toney at 19, Kwity Paye at 20, 21, Sam Cosmi, 22, Gregory Rousseau, 23, Aziz Ojalari, 24, Jalen Phillips to Atlanta, 25, Christian Barmore, 26, Nick Bolton to Green Bay, 27, Tevin Jenkins to Miami, trading up from 31, 28, Xavier Collins, 29, Davion Nixon to Cleveland, 30, Travis Etienne, 31, Rondale Moore to Baltimore, and 32, Landon Dickerson. So that is mock draft 1.0. I'm going to do a lot of these, guys. I don't know when the next one's going to be. I have a lot of other stuff planned for Mock Draft Monday, but you're going to see more Jake. You're going to see more me. You're going to see a lot more mock drafts. It should be a very fun time. I mean, this is why we call it Mock Draft Monday. Just a lot of fun making mock drafts, doing everything. So we're going to do it. We're going to bring mock drafts to you pretty often. Should be a great time. But that's going to do it for the stream, guys. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Actually, before I do that, just make sure to follow me on Twitter at NinerWireSam. Instagram's at NinerWire_YT. Subscribe to YouTube, NinerWire on Twitter. Subscribe to NinerWire on YouTube. Let me rephrase that. Also, make sure to check out Talking Niners, me and Kobe. Kobe should be on next week, so stay tuned for that. Follow us on Twitter at Talking Niners Pod. You want bonus Niner content? There you go. But anyways, guys, that's going to do it. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Go Niners!